感謝するぞ科学追加先空
Hello everybody, Megazard here. I'm back at it again to give you another episode review for Dr. Stone, this time being episode 14, Master of Flame. And if you haven't already watched last week's episode review over episode 13, you can go ahead and click that card in the corner and then come back and check this one though. But overall, man, I am just overall extremely impressed with this episode. It delivered on so many fronts. And while yes, this one didn't focus too much on the science element, but they did show a bit of it during one of the particular fight scenes whenever I get to it and discuss it though. But overall, this was a very straightforward episode. You had a lot of ups and downs. You had some moments where you're just grabbing your hands on the side of your seat and just like, oh man, can he prevail? Man, can he beat this person? But overall, I was just really impressed with this episode though. So go ahead and kick back and relax as we're about to get ready to cover this Dr. Stone review. But since there was a brand new opening for the anime, you know what that means. Yes, that means I finally managed to put together my brand new hot take intro for this latest opening song called Sengen Shoku by Pelican Fan Club. And I have to say, man, that opening is extremely good. And I was so happy to finally be able to take something new from the anime and be able to incorporate it and make my brand new Dr. Stone review opening. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive up into this episode review along with my brand spanking new opening for Dr. Stone reviews.
声も出ねえ試合は終わりだ審判のジャスパーに聞いてくれ双方を消すんなら潔く負けを認めるぜただのいい服だよって特に問題はうわ
ゼロに達して今をかけて流れる赤い血のよ背を引いて殻を割って咲いた花の模様をつなげてし筆を持って取り戻してく命目に見えないルールがリコールを探しに行く
So starting off at the very beginning of the episode, we basically are picking up from the final moments of episode 13, and it seemed like Kinru basically had a complete overall victory over Magma, and that's what a lot of people probably were expecting, but, you know, me just watching a crap ton of anime, I'm pretty sure I knew that just wasn't going to be the way how it was pretty much was going to play out. And essentially, Suika threw her glasses helmet to Kimro, and Kinro basically took it and, you know, he basically had the upper hand against Magma at that point because now his vision is correct and he's able to, you know, properly see everything Magma was throwing at him. So it was quick. He was able to quickly dodge pretty much anything he was throwing at him. But then Magma was like, hey, you know, I'll gladly take my L. Just make sure that, you know, you talk to the ref to make sure, you know, you're able to use that since it was like an outside source kind of material that he was basically using to give himself the upper hand. And as long as, you know, the ref said it was okay, you know, Magma was going to basically take its L. However, you know, don't ever trust a dude like this. We knew how much of a savage this man is, and, you know, things were just going to play out like this. So essentially, you know, Kinro walked over, and his fatal flaw was basically when he had his back turned to Magma, and he was asking, you know, the referee the questions. He said, well, since he didn't actually throw it at him and use it as an actual weapon, it was all right. It was just basically treated like a piece of clothing. And before he can even finish that sentence, Magma came upside and said, hello, and clobbered that dude on the head. And dang, that just felt bad right there. You know, basically knocked the dude out. He was almost halfway unconscious. And that basically ended the match, and Magma won between him and Kinro. And, you know, you saw Ginro jump out there and was like, man, are you okay? And he was like, yeah, I'm all right. Just a little beat up, that's all. And it was a bit unfortunate, but I just had a suspicion within me that I said, hey, you know, the moment that he turns his back to that dude, that's when, you know, he's gonna pull out a cheap shot on him. And we see that done in quite a bit in anime. Like, for example, you look at Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball Super, anytime when Goku basically dropped his guard, people like Frieza or whoever else that he was potentially fighting at the time basically took advantage of wide open opportunities. So that wasn't nothing new though. But essentially, Kimro lost the first round as I predicted. So Magma went up to the semifinals round. And then in the second round, we basically had Magma's partner in crime versus Chrome. And those two were basically going at it 90-0, and it was a pretty even battle. It wasn't super interesting or nothing like that. You just kind of saw them kind of like fighting like in like a sort of kind of cartoonish where you see that smoke screen cloud and they just kind of like babbling and punching and kicking, doing all that kind of stuff. And then out of nowhere, Magma saw Kohaku coming off in the distance, rushing back. As slightly earlier in the episode, it showed Kohaku basically finding the ropes that was originally bounding Suika to a tree. She found out, was like, oh, well, then pretty much was thinking, okay, well, let me go back to the village. Maybe she found a way to get back. Anyway, Kohaku was off in the distance and she was coming back, and Chrome essentially knew that, hey, I need to stall just for enough time to where Kohaku can come back. But Magma was thinking 2-3 steps ahead and said, hey, dude, go ahead and lose. And essentially, the other dude forfeited, so then Chrome automatically went up to the next round to the semifinals. So I predicted that in terms of Magma winning, but I didn't think, the other dude would quickly throw a forfeit to basically get Kohaku, disqualified. But anyway, it went on to the third match where it was ideally supposed to be Senkun versus Kohaku, but since Kohaku was still outside of the village on the outskirts trying to rush back in, due to her not being there at the present, Senkun won by default. So he went up to the semifinal round. So I did predict that right, because I did predict that Kohaku wasn't going to make it back there in time. So everything was kind of going and sort of kind of as I predicted. And then we get to the last match. And this one, oh gosh. This is where things pretty much got really interesting. As we basically saw Ginro face off against this brand new person that we basically haven't seen in the anime so far. So this dude really didn't have that much importance, in the overall scheme of things though. But he was just, in the competition to be in the competition. Anyway, Ginro was basically still sucking on those leaves that Senkun gave to him and said, hey, this can help, calm your nerves a little bit. It can give you a little natural boost in strength and everything else. And he was just basically sucking on all those raw materials because he knew that, he needed a little bit of help to help him kind of get through these grand bout matches. And the funny thing about it was, if you ate a whole bunch of it, all it was going to give you the runs. And Senkun was basically like, hey, don't tell him. This is going to be pretty funny. After this match ends, it's going to be pretty funny to see how his body reacts to eating all that material though. But essentially, this dude was taking a absolute beating, and he still managed to have just enough energy and just enough stamina in him to essentially still fight back. And it kind of threw the guy off, but unfortunately for him, he basically got pushed off to the edge, and he was basically able to knock him over into the water. And then Ginru basically won his match and proceeded to go up to the semifinal matches. Now, that was the match I didn't predict because for some reason I thought the mystery dude, since he was, he was unknown, I felt like he might have been more of a threat and he would eventually fight Chrome in the finals, but that's the only match I did not predict right. So, but it was interesting seeing, how all that played out. But at the very end of that fight, oh gosh, that dude ran off so fast, ran over that bridge and basically took a poo, and you just heard all of the farting and the gas pumping and all of that stuff, just hearing the stomach grind and everything else. Oh gosh, that was really funny right there. Oh goodness, man. Oh man, to be there and actually hear all that mess go down, man, I wouldn't be able to keep myself composed like that. Man, I was just completely lost it. And I was losing it while watching this episode. Definitely one of the personal highlights in terms of the comedy for this episode.
どこ行く銀の
多分お腹壊しちゃったんだよ。
あんだけドカ食いすりゃな。
And with all of the final matches done, now we get to move into the semifinal matches. And in terms of the first one, this is basically the most important one. The one that it really boiled all down to was the fact that Chrome now had to verse Magma in the first semifinal match. And in the grand scheme of things, people were kind of looking at it and saying, okay, well, if Chrome can somehow manage to weaken Magma just enough, it might give Ginru on the other side, who will actually face Senku next, enough of a possibility to basically win within the final match though. But Chrome came in here with a whole different other kind of plan. This dude was going for the TKO. He was going for that big W. And I give him major props for it because, man, it did not look like he was going to get it leading up to those final moments. Essentially, you know, he's been training to potentially take place in this grand bout, even though that he kind of felt like he might have not, but, you know, he and Senku basically signed up anyway. And he's been training against that tree and kind of banging that stick up in it to trying to go for pretty much every dude's weak point. He was basically trying to go for that shot in the nuts, but that didn't work at first. And it basically had Chrome laying on the ground. And then Magma started letting down the beat down. He started beating on that dude so hard, so badly. And then, you know, you just saw like the blood kind of running off from his hair, kind of like going down his forehead and stuff. And man, it was just really hard to watch and see. And then seeing Ruri up there in the stand sitting down and seeing all of this go down in front of him. And see this go down in front of her. Seeing all of this happen to this dude who was her, you know, childhood friend and everything else, and just seeing your childhood friend like that just getting beat to a pulp in front of you, I know that was just aggravating for her to see, as well as Senku, Kohaku, and the whole rest of the gang. It was a little bit too much to bear, but he was not out yet. He's like, I can keep swinging. He basically got up, ran, and then he ran basically to the point where Suika's helmet, her busted up helmet now, he ran over there and, you know, essentially threw himself over it and started kind of protecting it. And at first it kind of got me scratching my head, like, what is he doing this for? And then Magma basically just walked over to him and then just started, you know, beating him up more. But little did we not know at the time, until we figured out a few moments later, that Chrome was actually using the sweat and tears that was coming off of his body and putting it on the glasses part of the helmet. And then he basically got up, took the stick and held the stick at just the right point where it was kind of like leaning over, and it was kind of leaning over his body in a way, over his clothes at a certain angle. And then I was still thinking at it like, what in the world is this dude doing? And then Senku started thinking hard about it, and then he realized what he was doing. Chrome was essentially trying to use the glasses as a sort of kind of like a magnifying glass to be able to redirect the sunlight and be able to pierce, you know, Magma's clothes in order to, you know, start a fire on his clothes. And that would basically try to give him the W over him, because clearly in terms of strength, he wasn't going to be able to win. So it's up to basically his wits in order to be able to win the battle or to win the match. And then Senku noticed one fatal flaw about the whole entire thing, and that was a matter of fact that glasses are actually shaped concave, and they, you know, direct light outwards instead of the way that you would want to use glass in order to start a fire, which is actually convex, which redirects the lights all at a certain point in order, you know, to catch the fire. But Chrome was thinking, you know, 3 steps ahead of Senku, and that's why he was dripping the sweat and the tears off of his body onto the glasses lens, basically kind of changing the properties of the light. So instead of it acting as like a concave, you know, shape in terms of redirecting the light, it actually changed to convex. So he could actually now manage to be able to make that sunlight and catch Magma's clothes on fire. So Senku was impressed by this, and then he started running some calculations in his mind, and then he figured out that he basically needed 60 seconds in order for in order for his clothes to catch on fire. And however, that's due to like a whole different probability of making sure that, you know, that water sit just right on the lens in order for it to catch on fire. And then all of a sudden, Gin out of nowhere pops up, and he was basically kind of watching this this tournament match kind of go off in the distance, and he kind of, you know, shut up within the town district, and basically everybody was like, what in the world is he doing here? He's like, well, you know, I'm not the main center of the show right now. All of the effort should be pointing towards Chrome. And he was like, you know what? And then, you know, he kind of heard, you know, Sinkun kind of run through his calculations, and he's like, how long would it take for him to create that fire? And he said basically 60 seconds. And he was like, alrighty. Essentially, Gin was like, I got this. And he stood up at the very top of the tower and was like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna basically be the one to stall for time, because ideally Chrome would never been able to hold that position like that to allow him to catch Magma's clothes on fire like that. Eventually, at some point, Magma was about to move and give that delivering blow. But seeing Gin up there shocked Magma as well as his lackey, like, what? I thought the dude was dead. And he's like, well, through my sorcery, I was able to come back, baby. But I'm gonna place a curse on you where if you move one step, your heart is gonna explode. And this basically threw Magma in shock, because he's like, man, this dude came back from death because he saw all the blood that was around him due to those blood packs and everything. Man, if he was able to survive death like that, even after I was pretty sure I killed him, this dude ain't playing no jokes. So he basically stood still and he said, oh, my power can only hold out for exactly 1 minute, 60 seconds. And that basically bought him just enough time, if Sinkun's calculations was right, to allow Chrome to hold that stick still for just the right amount of time to catch that fire. And eventually, you know, by the time the time limit was roughly about up, the fire finally ignited on his shirt, and then Sinkun was like, go ahead and pat it. And he's like, oh yeah, he about to get it now. And all of his shirt started to go up on flame and everything like that. And then, you know, he started, you know, rolling in the ground trying to put it out. And then Chrome was like, you know what, I'll put you out of your misery. And he bopped that dude with that stick and essentially, you know, flew him over the edge into the water. And then boom, Magma lost the match, which meant Chrome won the whole entire thing for that match, and he was going on into the final round. So seeing Chrome actually make it to the final round was some sweet poetic justice, because he actually had some feelings towards Ruri whenever they were kids and everything though. So he naturally kind of wanted to be that person to help save her, or slash potentially be her future husband. So it was all, you know, some good poetic justice to actually see him win that match, as I sort of kind of predicted within, you know, the previous episode. So I was right on that factor. So it does look like that Chrome will be the overall winner, because now we have Chrome going to the finals, and then in the semifinals on the other side of the bracket we have Sinkun and Ginro facing each other. So whoever would have won out of that is like a fairly friend fight. They would have went up to the final, and they probably would have let Chrome walk away with the big W though. But overall, I was really impressed with this. I really liked the way how this tournament was kind of dealt. It was sort of kind of predictable in a lot of ways though, but overall it was fun and enjoyable to see. So now, as we're looking on into the future, we got to see what kind of secrets that Ruri actually knows about, you know, Sinkun, since she kind of knows of him, doesn't know him, but knows of him. With her basically saying the thing with the last names and everything though, so we kind of have to see everything on that front and see what secrets does she hold, and we can finally get to see them, you know, potentially use the alcohol to make the last little ingredients they need in order to create this cure-all drug in order to save Ruri. But that's pretty much it in terms of this episode though. But if you really like this video, go ahead and hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and hit that bell to stay up to date on all things Dr. Stone that I'm reviewing this season. So yeah, that's pretty much it for my review. So make sure to tune in next time for my Dr. Stone episode 15 review, the culmination of 2 million years. So until whatever video I make next, see ya.
なんだこれは。
おうマグマ、安心しろ。こっちは人殺しする気はねえ。完全勝利だ。